My name is Harper, and I'm 28 years old. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, I sat beside my mother's hospital bed, watching her chest rise and fall in shallow, painful breaths. The heart monitor beeped slower with each passing minute. My father stood by the window, checking his watch for the fifth time in 10 minutes. Mom's fingers suddenly tightened around mine. Her eyes opened just a sliver, and she whispered something I could barely hear. Then the monitor flatlined. Before I could even process that she was gone, my father's cold voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Pack your things. You have until sunrise." I turned to look at him, certain I'd misheard. But his face was stone. "I'm selling the house tomorrow, and you were never part of my plans anyway." Before we dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you want to hear how a father's cruelty led to the most shocking discovery of my life, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you won't believe where this story goes. The nurses walked in moments after Mom's heart stopped. Their faces practiced masks of sympathy. I couldn't move. My hand was still holding hers, still warm but already feeling different. Empty. I begged them for just 5 more minutes. 5 minutes to say goodbye to the woman who had been my entire world. "She's gone, Harper. No point lingering." My father's voice had no warmth, no grief, just impatience. He was already on his phone, scrolling through contacts. Real estate agents. Lawyers. Planning his next moves while Mom's body was still in the room. I watched him make call after call, his tone businesslike and efficient. This wasn't a man who had just lost his wife of 30 years. This was a man checking items off a to-do list, and apparently, I was one of those items. My mind drifted back to better times. I remembered being 12 years old, sitting on my father's shoulders at a 4th of July parade. Head called me his princess back then. Wed had Sunday morning pancake traditions and bedtime story rituals. But everything changed the year his tech startup took off. Money came flooding in, and with it, a coldness I'd never seen before. Success transformed Richard Morrison from a loving dad into someone I barely recognized. Someone who measured worth in dollar signs and social status. Mom had been the buffer between us for 16 years. Catherine Morrison had this gift of making everything okay. When Dad worked late for the 100th night in a row, she'd make it an adventure, just the two of us. When he criticized my choice to study marketing instead of computer science, she'd remind me that following my heart wasn't weakness. She held our broken family together with grace and unconditional love. Now she was gone, and the facade crumbled instantly. A woman's voice echoed down the hospital corridor, high heels clicking against linoleum. Sienna walked into the room like she owned it, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She was 32, my father's former secretary, and apparently now his girlfriend. Her face arranged itself into an expression of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Richard, I'm so sorry." She touched his arm, and he actually leaned into her embrace. Right there, in the room where my mother had just died. Sienna glanced around the hospital room with barely concealed distaste. "Well, at least now we'll have space to redecorate. That house has been stuck in the 90s for way too long." The words hit me like a physical blow. They'd been planning this, waiting. My father had spent my mother's final months plotting his new life, one that didn't include me. He pulled a manila envelope from his briefcase and thrust it toward me. "Everything you're entitled to is in here." My hands shook as I opened it. Hospital bills. Every single one from the last 6 months of Mom's treatment. All transferred into my name. Nothing else. No inheritance, no acknowledgement, just debt. "You can't be serious." My voice cracked. "I'm perfectly serious. Your mother's illness cost this family millions. Someone needs to be responsible." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. My father must have called them while I was too shocked to notice. They escorted me out of the room, past nurses who wouldn't meet my eyes, down the elevator, and into the parking lot. The automatic doors closed behind me with a soft whoosh that sounded like finality. I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic as the sun started to rise, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. 6 months ago, I'd given up my apartment to move back home and care for Mom full-time. I'd quit my marketing job, spent every day and night by her side through chemo, radiation, and endless doctor appointments. My father had promised we were family, that I'd always have a home. Now I understood those words meant nothing. I had nowhere to go, $47 in my checking account, and a father who'd been counting down the minutes until he could erase me from his life. I drove to the mansion in the wealthy suburb where I'd grown up, pulling into the circular driveway just as dawn broke across the perfectly manicured lawn. The house looked the same as always. White columns, sprawling gardens, the kind of place that screamed old money and success. But when I tried my key in the front door, it didn't work. Had changed the locks. Already. Mom had been dead for less than 6 hours, and my father had already erased any trace of my right to be there. Panic clawed at my throat. Everything I owned was inside that house. Photos of Mom, my clothes, documents, 28 years of memories. I walked around to the garden, my mother's favorite place. She'd shown me a secret years ago, a hidden entrance through the rose arbor that led to a side door. The key was tucked under a loose brick, exactly where it had always been. Mom must have kept it hidden from Dad all these years. The door opened silently. I slipped inside, my heart pounding. The house felt different already, colder, emptier. I made my way upstairs to my childhood bedroom, each step creaking in the early morning silence. When I opened my bedroom door, I nearly collapsed. Everything was destroyed. My clothes were thrown into black trash bags. Picture frames were shattered. My mother's handwritten notes to me, little encouragements she'd leave on my pillow during high school, were ripped in half and scattered across the floor. Someone had gone through my room with deliberate cruelty, turning my sanctuary into a dump. I knew you'd try something pathetic like this. My father's voice came from the hallway. He stood there with 2 enormous security guards flanking him. Both looked like former military, all muscle and intimidation. "Dad, please! I just need my things. Mom just died. How can you do this?" Something flickered across his face. Not regret, more like irritation at being questioned. "You want the truth, Harper? I never wanted children. You were Catherine's idea. Her dream. I went along with it to make her happy, but you've been nothing but a financial drain for 28 years. The words felt unreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else. He continued, his voice growing harsher. "Your mother's illness cost me millions. Millions I spent on treatments that did nothing except prolong her suffering. And you encouraged it. Every experimental therapy, every specialist consultation. You convinced her to keep fighting when she should have just accepted the inevitable. You made it worse. That's not fair. She wanted to fight. She wanted to live. She wanted to live for you. And now she's gone. And I'm left cleaning up the mess. Sienna and I are getting married next month. We're starting fresh. There's no room for awkwardness in our new life." Sienna appeared behind him, a smirk playing at her lips. She was holding my childhood photo albums, the ones Mom had carefully assembled over decades. Pictures of birthday parties, family vacations, school plays, irreplaceable memories. "These don't match my aesthetic," Sienna said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "They're going in the trash." Something inside me snapped. I lunged forward, trying to grab the albums from her hands. She shrieked dramatically, stumbling backward. The security guards grabbed my arms, their grip bruising. "She's attacking us. Did you see that?" "She's violent." Sienna's performance was worthy of an Oscar. The guards dragged me down the stairs. I fought and screamed, but they were too strong. They threw me onto the front lawn along with one trash bag of my belongings. The contents spilled across the grass. Childhood toys, old t-shirts. Nothing of value, nothing that mattered. Neighbors watched from their windows. Mrs. Henderson from next door actually came out onto her porch. I caught her eye, silently begging for help. She looked away and went back inside. My father was too powerful in this community. Nobody would cross Richard Morrison. A car screeched to a halt at the curb. Jade, my best friend since high school, jumped out. She'd been driving past on her way to work. What the hell is happening? Get her out of here. My father called from the doorway. She's trespassing. Jade helped me gather what she could from the trash bag. We threw it in her trunk and drove away. I watched the mansion disappear in the side mirror, the place where I'd grown up, where my mother had loved me unconditionally. Now, it was just another piece of property my father was eager to sell. Jade's apartment was tiny, a studio on the other side of town. But she pulled out her couch cushions to make a bed without hesitation. She held me while I cried, and somewhere through the tears, a small voice in my head whispered that I had to be stronger than this. Mom would want me to be stronger. But right then, I had no idea how. 3 days later, I stood outside St. Matthew's Cathedral, in the same simple black dress I'd been wearing for 2 days straight. It was the only one that had survived the trash bag. Jade had offered to lend me something, but we weren't the same size, so I showed up to my mother's funeral looking exactly like what I was, broken and poor. The church was enormous, packed with hundreds of people. I didn't recognize half of them. Society figures, business associates, people who'd probably never even met my mother. But they were there for the spectacle, for the networking opportunities at a wealthy man's tragedy. My father stood at the front, commanding attention even in grief, or what he wanted people to believe was grief. He delivered a eulogy that would have been touching if I didn't know the truth. He painted himself as a devoted husband who'd sacrificed everything to care for his beloved Catherine. He talked about the financial burden Head willingly shouldered, the career opportunities Head passed up to be by her side. Every word was a lie. He never mentioned me once, not my months of caregiving, not the nights I'd stayed awake monitoring Mom's pain medication, not the way I'd held her hand through every single chemo session. I'd been erased from the narrative completely. Instead, he thanked Sienna, actually thanked her for supporting him through this difficult time. She sat in the front row, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, playing the role of the compassionate girlfriend. The seat next to her should have been mine, but I stood in the back, behind a column, invisible. After the service, my father stepped up to the microphone again. Catherine was passionate about helping others, especially those battling cancer. In her memory, establishing the Catherine Memorial Foundation for Cancer Research. And to start this important work, I'm donating $1 million. The crowd gasped and applauded. Cameras flashed. A journalist from the society pages scribbled notes. Richard Morrison, philanthropist, grieving widower, pillar of the community. I felt sick. When people began moving toward the reception hall, I tried to approach the microphone. I had things to say, true things about who my mother really was. The priest saw me coming and nodded sympathetically. But before I could speak, security guards materialized. My father's men. One of them took the microphone from my hand. I'm sorry, miss, but the family has asked that we keep the program moving. I am family, I said loudly. I'm her daughter. People turned to look. My father appeared at my side, his hand clamping down on my elbow. His grip was tight enough to hurt. He leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear. Cause a scene and make sure everyone knows what an ungrateful daughter you are. How you abandoned Catherine in her final days. How I had to hire professional nurses because you couldn't be bothered to help. The sheer audacity of the lie stole my breath. But when I looked at his face, I saw he believed he could sell it. And worse, I saw he probably could. He released my arm and I stumbled backward. The security guards escorted me away from the microphone, away from the reception, toward the parking lot again. Nobody stopped them. Nobody questioned it. At the reception, I hovered near the edges. My father's business partners talked loudly about their golf handicaps and stock portfolios. Society women who had known my mother for decades walked past me without acknowledgement. It was like I'd become invisible. Or worse, like I'd become the villain in a story that all agreed to believe. I overheard fragments of conversations. Poor Richard, having to deal with a troubled daughter on top of everything. I heard she demanded money at the hospital. Mental illness runs in some families. Had gotten to them first, poisoned them against me, and they'd swallowed every word because it was easier to believe Richard Morrison than to question him. An elderly woman approached me, Vivian Hartley, one of my mother's oldest friends. She'd been at our house countless times over the years, had watched me grow up. Her husband tried to pull her away, but she shook him off. "Harper, dear," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously. "I can't talk long, but your mother wanted me to tell you something if I got the chance." My heart lurched. "What? What did she say?" She said, "The truth is in the rose garden. I don't know what it means, but she made me promise to tell you." Before I could ask anything else, Vivian's husband pulled her away, shooting me an apologetic look. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my mind spinning. The rose garden. Mom's favorite place. What truth? A champagne glass clinked against a knife. My father was making another announcement. "Everyone, I have some wonderful news to share. In this time of profound loss, I've found a beacon of light and hope. Sienna has agreed to be my wife." He pulled her close and kissed her. Right there, at my mother's funeral reception. The crowd applauded again. People rushed forward to congratulate them. It had been 3 days. 3 days since my mother died, and my father was announcing his engagement. I ran. Out of the reception hall, through the parking lot, into Jade's car. She'd been waiting for me, knowing I'd need an escape. I crumpled into the passenger seat and sobbed until there was nothing left inside me. 2 weeks after the funeral, my life had become unrecognizable. I applied to 73 jobs. I got rejection after rejection, each one more demoralizing than the last. Finally, I got a call back from my old marketing firm. They'd loved my work before I left to care for Mom. Surely they'd take me back. The interview lasted 10 minutes. My former boss looked uncomfortable the entire time, barely meeting my eyes. At the end, she sighed. "Harper, I'm sorry. Your father called me personally. He said you've been struggling with mental health issues, that you're unreliable. I can't take that risk." My father had blacklisted me. Systematically called every company in my industry, every connection we'd shared. He was destroying my professional reputation with the same cold efficiency he'd used to erase me from his personal life. I lived on Jade's couch, trying to make myself as small and unobtrusive as possible. She never complained, but I saw the strain. Her studio apartment wasn't meant for 2 people. She started coming home later from work. I couldn't blame her. Who wants to face someone else's tragedy every evening? My bank account hit 0. Then it went negative when the hospital bills started processing. My father had somehow legally transferred them to my name. I didn't understand how that was possible. But my credit score plummeted overnight. 300 points gone in days. I'd heard Mom's family lawyer was named Patterson, had handled her affairs for years. Maybe he could help me understand what was happening. I went to his office downtown, a sleek building that screamed expensive legal expertise. The receptionist's face changed when I gave my name. "I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson isn't available." "When will he be available?" "Has asked that we not schedule appointments with you. Your father is a major client, and there's a conflict of interest." I sat in the lobby anyway, for 4 hours. Other clients came and went, shooting me curious glances. The receptionist made several phone calls, whispering urgently. I didn't care. I had nowhere else to be. Finally, at 6 p.m., Mr. Patterson emerged from the elevator. He was a distinguished man in his late 60s, silver hair and an expensive suit. When he saw me, he froze. Then he glanced around nervously and walked over quickly. "Harper, you can't be here." His voice was low, urgent. "I just need 5 minutes. Please, my mother trusted you." Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. He pulled me into a small conference room and closed the door. "I have maybe 2 minutes before someone notices. Your father has eyes everywhere." "What happened to my mother's will? She wouldn't have left me with nothing." Mr. Patterson rubbed his temples. "Your mother did leave a will. It was complicated. She had assets your father didn't know about. But Richard contested it immediately. There's litigation. I can't say more. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went pale. That's your father calling. I have to go. I'm sorry, Harper. I truly am. But I can't help you. He rushed out, leaving me alone in the conference room. I sat there for a long time, staring at the expensive wood paneling, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong so fast. That evening, I visited Mom's grave for the first time since the funeral. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. Her headstone was simple granite with her name and dates. Born March 15, 1968. Died October 22, 2024. 56 years old. Too young. Way too young. I knelt on the grass and talked to her like she could hear me. Told her about the apartment, the lost jobs, Dad's cruelty. Apologized for failing to protect her memory. The words poured out until my voice was hoarse. I don't know what to do, Mom. I'm trying to be strong like you wanted, but I'm so tired. I have nothing left. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. And I remembered Vivian's words. The truth is in the rose garden. The rose garden at the mansion. Mom's special place. Shed spent hours there during her illness, sitting on her favorite bench under the arbor. Shed said the roses reminded her that beautiful things can survive harsh conditions. Maybe Shed left something there, a clue, a message. I watched the mansion for 2 days, learning the patterns. My father and Sienna left every Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. for the country club. The security guard took his smoking break at 3:30 like clockwork. There was a 7-minute window when the side garden was unwatched. It was insane. Criminal. Probably. I could go to jail for trespassing, especially with the restraining order my father would inevitably file if he caught me. But I had nothing left to lose. And somewhere in that rose garden was a truth my mother wanted me to find. On Thursday, I waited in my car down the street, watched my father and Sienna drive away in his Mercedes. At 3:32, the security guard lit his cigarette near the front gate. I slipped through the hedge line at the property's edge, my heart hammering against my ribs. The rose garden was overgrown. Sienna clearly had no interest in maintaining Mom's sanctuary. Weeds pushed through the stone pathways. The arbor sagged under the weight of untended vines. It hurt to see something Mom loved so much falling into neglect. I ran to her favorite bench, the white iron one beneath the climbing roses. Mom used to sit here for hours, even toward the end when walking exhausted her. I looked under the bench, around it, finding nothing. Panic started to build. What if there was nothing here? What if Vivian had been confused? Then I noticed one of the paving stones beneath the bench looked slightly different. Newer, maybe. I knelt and tried to pry it up. It shifted. Underneath was a hollow space, and inside that space was a metal box, waterproof and sealed. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a USB drive, a handwritten letter, and a small brass key. Mom's handwriting on the envelope. For Harper. When you're ready. I tucked the box under my jacket and started back toward the hedge line. Then an alarm pierced the afternoon quiet. Motion sensors. They'd installed new security since ID lived here. Red lights flashed along the garden perimeter. I ran. Behind me I heard shouting. The security guard. And Sienna's voice, shrill and angry. They'd come back early. How had they known? I crashed through the hedge, thorns tearing at my clothes and skin. Made it to my car and gunned the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw the security guard on his phone, probably calling the police. Sienna stood on the lawn, screaming about theft and trespassing. I drove to Jade's apartment with my heart in my throat, expecting police sirens any moment. When I got inside, Jade was at work. I opened Mom's letter with trembling hands. My darling Harper, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I suspect your father has shown his true colors. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you from this while I was alive. But I tried to protect you in the only way I could. Everything in this box is yours. The USB contains evidence of your father's betrayal. Has been having an affair with Sienna for 2 years. Has been hiding assets, preparing to leave me with nothing, but I was preparing too. Trust what I built for you separately. The key will lead you to answers. I love you forever. Mom. I plugged the USB into my laptop. Files and folders appeared. Financial records showing money transfers from joint accounts to hidden accounts. Photos of my father and Sienna together, dated from before Mom's diagnosis. Emails planning their future, discussing how to handle the wife situation. There was also a safety deposit box key. I turned it over in my palm, this small brass thing that might hold more answers. But before I could think about what to do next, my phone buzzed. A notification. It'd been tagged in a post on social media. It was from the local news page. An article titled "Prominent Businessman Forced to Seek Protection from Troubled Daughter." My father had gone public. The story painted me as mentally unstable, potentially dangerous, struggling with addiction. Anonymous sources all saying terrible things. My phone rang. Aunt Diane, my mother's sister. She lived 3 states away. We'd been close once. "Harper, honey, what's going on?" Richard called me. Hez saying some really concerning things. "Aunt Diane, none of it's true. Dad is lying. He had an affair. He threw me out the night Mom died. He's trying to destroy me." Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "That's a lot of very serious accusations. Richard sounded genuinely worried about you. He mentioned he'd been making up stories, that the grief might be causing some kind of break. You don't believe me." More silence. "I think maybe you need to talk to someone professional. A therapist." Richard offered to pay for it. Of course he did. Because that makes him look like the caring father. Right. "Harper, I love you. But I need some time to figure out what's true. This is all very confusing." She hung up. My own family was turning against me based on my father's lies. I thought about calling other relatives, but if He'd gotten to Aunt Diane this quickly, He'd already poisoned all of them. That night, I barely slept. Every car sound outside made me think the police were coming. Every notification on my phone sent my anxiety spiking. I was wanted for trespassing. My father would press charges. I'd lose what little I had left. But I had the USB. And I had the key. Somewhere in these pieces was the truth my mother died protecting. I just had to be brave enough to find it. The criminal complaint came 3 days later. Trespassing, theft, burglary. My father had filed a police report claiming I'd stolen valuable property from his home. The USB and letter? In his version, those were family heirlooms worth thousands. Complete lies, but who would believe me over him? A restraining order followed immediately. I couldn't come within 500 feet of my father, his home, or his business. Violating it meant immediate jail time. The legal system had been weaponized against me with terrifying efficiency. Jade found me crying in her bathroom at 2 a.m. "Harper, you have to fight this. Get a lawyer." "With what money?" "I have $47. Public defenders are overworked. My father has a team of attorneys who bill $800 an hour. But I couldn't give up. Not when Mom had gone to such lengths to leave me these clues. I looked at the USB again, the photos of my father and Sienna. If I went to the police with evidence of his affair and financial fraud, would they listen? I tried. I walked into the police station downtown and asked to speak to someone about financial crimes. They sent me to Detective Martinez, a tired-looking man in his mid-40s with kind eyes. I showed him everything, the USB contents, the bank transfers, the hidden accounts. He listened carefully, taking notes. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Someone was taking me seriously. Then my father's lawyers walked in. 3 of them, expensive suits and briefcases. How had they known I was here? Did my father have the police department on his payroll too? The lawyers presented their case smoothly. The USB and its contents had been stolen from my father's property during an illegal break-in. Everything on it was fruit of the poisonous tree, inadmissible as evidence. Any investigation based on illegally obtained information would be thrown out of court. Detective Martinez looked genuinely sorry. "They're right. I can't use this. But it proves he's committing crimes. It proves nothing legally. I'm sorry. My hands are tied. The lawyers smiled. They'd won again. As they left, one of them handed me a business card. Mr. Morrison is willing to drop the criminal charges if you agree to a psychiatric evaluation and cease all contact. I'm not crazy, then prove it. Sign the evaluation consent or face felony charges, your choice. I walked out of the police station in a daze. Every path forward was blocked. Every move I made, my father was 3 steps ahead. He had money, power, connections. I had nothing. In desperation, I contacted a local reporter named Greg Williams. He'd written investigative pieces before, exposing corruption. Maybe he'd be interested in the truth about Richard Morrison. Greg met me at a coffee shop. He listened to my story, looked at the USB contents on his laptop. His eyes widened at some of the financial documents. This is explosive stuff. Your father's company could be in serious trouble if this got out. Finally. Someone who saw it. Will you write about it? Let me make some calls. Do some preliminary verification. I'll be in touch. 2 days later, Greg called back. His voice was different. Flat. Apologetic. I can't run the story, Harper. My editor killed it. Why? Your father's company is one of our biggest advertisers. We run 6 figures worth of ads with them annually. The publisher made it clear. No story. So that's it? The truth doesn't matter if someone has enough money. I'm sorry. That's how it works sometimes. I sat in Jade's apartment that evening, alone. She was working late again, probably trying to avoid the disaster my life had become. I couldn't blame her. Who wants to be around someone this toxic? This cursed? I had $47. Criminal charges pending. A restraining order. No job prospects. No family support. A ruined reputation. And a father who'd systematically destroyed every path forward. The only thing I had left was Mom's letter and the brass key. I read the letter again. Trust what I built for you separately. The key had a number engraved on it. 8473. And a bank logo I didn't recognize. Some downtown branch I'd never been to. It was my last hope. Maybe my only hope. Tomorrow I'd take that key and find out what my mother had been protecting. Because if there was nothing there, if this was just another dead end, I didn't know how much longer I could keep fighting. My father's PR offensive went into overdrive. He hired a crisis management firm, the kind that specializes in controlling narratives for powerful people. Within 48 hours, my name was everywhere, attached to words like unstable, addicted, violent. A glossy magazine article appeared in the local society pages. The headline read, "Grieving Widower Speaks Out About Troubled Daughter." In it, my father painted himself as a victim of my mental illness. He talked about finding drugs in my room when I was a teenager. Complete fabrication. He described violent outbursts that had never happened. He even had family friends giving anonymous quotes about how worried they'd been about me for years. The article included a photo of him looking distinguished and sad, with Sienna by his side offering comfort. They looked like the perfect couple, tragically burdened by a disturbed family member. My phone started ringing. Aunt Diane called again, this time her voice cold. "Harper, I read the article. Your father showed me text messages where you threatened him." "What messages? I never threatened anyone." "He has screenshots. They're from your number." "Hess fabricating evidence." "You know me. You've known me since I was born. I thought I knew you. But grief can change people. And addiction, Harper. If you're struggling with substances, there's help available. I'm not an addict. This is insane." But Shed already made up her mind. "I think it's best if we don't talk for a while. You need to get help. When you're ready to be honest about your problems, call me." She hung up. My own aunt, the woman who'd taught me to braid my hair and bake Christmas cookies, poisoned against me by lies. Other relatives followed. Cousins I'd grown up with stopped responding to messages. My grandmother, my mother's mother, called to say she was disappointed in me and needed space. My father had reached all of them first, armed with fake evidence and practiced sincerity. Job interviews dried up completely. The few companies that had shown interest suddenly ghosted me. One HR manager I'd built rapport with sent a terse email. "We've decided to go in a different direction." Translation: "We Googled you and saw the headlines." Jade started coming home even later. One night, she sat down across from me with visible discomfort on her face. "Harper, I need to talk to you about something." My stomach dropped. "You want me to leave?" "No. God, no. You can stay as long as you need. But my family is putting pressure on me. My mom saw the articles. She's worried I'm putting myself in danger by having you here. You know I'm not dangerous. I know that. But everyone's telling me I'm being naive. That I don't know the real you. It's exhausting defending you constantly. I moved to pack my things. I'll go. You've done so much already." Jade grabbed my arm. "I said you can stay. I'm not kicking you out. I'm just being honest about the pressure." "But Harper, you have to do something. You can't just sit here and let him destroy you." "But what could I do?" I'd tried the police, the media, family, the legal system. Every door was slammed in my face. My father's money and influence had built walls I couldn't climb. The breaking point came when I tried to open a new bank account. My credit was so destroyed that 3 banks rejected me. The 4th manager pulled me aside. "Miss Morrison, I'm going to be frank with you. There are flags on your financial profile. Fraud alerts. Suspicion of identity theft. Someone has systematically trashed your credit. Have you recently angered anyone with resources?" My father. He wasn't content with destroying my reputation and career. He was making sure I couldn't function financially either. Couldn't rent an apartment. Couldn't get utilities in my name. Couldn't even open a basic checking account. I sat in my car outside that bank and screamed until my voice gave out. Pounded the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I'd hit absolute rock bottom. Lower than rock bottom. I was in a hole my father had dug specifically for me, and he was still shoveling dirt on top. That evening, I pulled out Mom's letter again. "Read it for the 100th time. Trust what I built for you separately. The key, the safety deposit box." It was Thursday. The downtown bank would be open until 6. I had $47 in cash, a car with a quarter tank of gas, and nothing left to lose. I drove downtown through rush-hour traffic, my hands shaking on the wheel. The bank was one of those old, established institutions. Marble columns and brass fixtures. The kind of place that catered to old money. I approached a teller with the key. "I need to access a safety deposit box." She looked at the number, then at me with surprise. "This box is quite old. Let me get the manager." Mrs. Chen appeared moments later, a dignified woman in her 50s with kind eyes. She examined the key carefully. "This box hasn't been accessed in over 20 years. It's registered to Catherine Helena Morrison." "Are you family?" "I'm her daughter, Harper Morrison. She passed away last month." Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "I'm very sorry for your loss. Do you have identification?" I showed her my driver's license, my hands trembling. She led me through the vault to a private viewing room. The safety deposit box was larger than I expected. Mrs. Chen left me alone with it. I opened it with the key, and my breath caught. Inside the box were documents. So many documents. Property deeds, stock certificates, legal papers. I pulled them out with shaking hands, spreading them across the table. 12 property deeds, all in my mother's maiden name. Catherine Helena Winters. Addresses in 3 different states. Townhouses, condos, small apartment buildings. Places I'd never heard of. The earliest deed was dated 25 years ago. Stock certificates came next. Apple. Purchased in 1997. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all bought decades ago when they were just starting. Thousands of shares. Some of them had split multiple times over the years. At the bottom of the box was another letter. My mother's handwriting, but this one was longer, more detailed. "My dearest Harper," it began. "If you're reading this, you found what I've been protecting. Let me explain everything. When I married your father 30 years ago, I came from money. Real money. My parents were wealthy beyond what most people could imagine. When they died 25 years ago, I inherited $8 million. Your father knew about some of it, but not all. Not even close. I opened accounts in my maiden name. I invested carefully. I bought real estate in neighborhoods I believed would grow. I bought stock in companies I thought would change the world. And I never told your father the full extent of what I had. It was my secret, my safety net, my way of protecting you if things ever went wrong. And Harper, I knew things would go wrong. I knew who your father really was. I saw the coldness in him growing year after year. I stayed because I thought I could shield you from it. I thought I could be enough love for both parents. Maybe I was wrong to stay, but am not wrong about this. You are protected now. Everything I built is yours. The properties are worth approximately $18 million. The stocks are worth approximately $14 million. There's a trust fund with $1 million in cash. Total value, $33 million. All of it is in your name, completely separate from your father, protected by a prenuptial agreement he signed and forgot existed. Protected by legal structures I built with the best attorneys money could buy. Your father has no claim to any of it. It's yours. It was always yours. I started this trust the day you were born. I added to it every year. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone, I put more away. Not because I knew I'd die young, but because I knew I needed to protect you from him. There's more in this box. Documentation of your father's crimes. Tax evasion. Fraud against business partners. Things that could send him to prison. I gathered this evidence not for revenge but for protection. If he ever tries to hurt you legally, you have ammunition to fight back. At the bottom of these documents, you'll find contact information for Gloria Winters. She's a family law attorney, one of the best in the state. I've already retained her, paid her in full for 2 years of work on your behalf. She's been waiting for your call. Harper, my sweet girl. My greatest achievement. Don't seek revenge. Build a beautiful life instead. Be happy. Success is the best response to cruelty. But if the time comes when you need to defend yourself, you have the resources now. You have the power. And you have my love. Always and forever. Mom. I sat in that vault room and sobbed. Not from sadness this time. From overwhelming gratitude and love. My mother had spent years, maybe decades, building this safety net, while battling cancer, while enduring my father's coldness, while watching me sacrifice everything to care for her. She'd been protecting me in ways I never knew. Mrs. Chen knocked softly. Miss Morrison? Are you all right? I wiped my eyes. I'm fine. Better than fine. Can you help me understand these documents? She sat down and went through everything professionally. The properties were all paid off, no mortgages. They generated rental income of approximately $30,000 per month combined. The stock portfolio was managed by a wealth management firm my mother had hired. They'd been growing it for years, following her instructions even after her death. Your mother was a remarkable investor, Mrs. Chen said. These Apple shares alone are worth over $2 million. She bought them at $7 per share. The numbers were incomprehensible. Yesterday I had $47. Today I had $33 million. But it wasn't about the money. It was about my mother's love. Her foresight, her protection reaching out from beyond the grave to save me. At the bottom of the documents was a business card. Gloria Winters, attorney at law. A handwritten note on the back. Call any time. Your mother was a dear friend. I promised her I'd help you. I called the number right there in the bank. A warm voice answered. Gloria Winters speaking. Miss Winters, this is Harper Morrison, Catherine's daughter. A pause. Then her voice filled with warmth. Harper, I've been waiting for your call. Your mother told me so much about you. I'm so very sorry for your loss. She was an extraordinary woman. I just found the safety deposit box, the documents. I don't understand how she did all this. Your mother was brilliant. One of the smartest people I've ever known. She came to me 2 years ago and said, I need to protect my daughter from my husband. We built an airtight legal structure. Come to my office tomorrow morning. We have a great deal to discuss. I left the bank in a daze. The evening sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, my mother's favorite colors. I sat in my car and looked at the property deeds again. 12 properties, my properties, buildings I could live in or sell or keep as investments, a portfolio that generated passive income, freedom. But more than that, I had proof of my father's crimes, evidence that could bring down his empire if needed. And I had Gloria Winters, a champion my mother had chosen specifically for this battle. I drove back to Jade's apartment, my mind spinning with possibilities. When I walked in, she looked up from her laptop, concerned. "How are you holding up? Jade, I need to tell you something. My mother left me money, a lot of money, and I want to pay you back for everything. And I want to start fighting back." Her eyes widened. "How much money?" $33 million. She dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, but neither of us moved to clean it up. We just stared at each other as the reality sank in. The game had changed completely. Gloria Winters' office was everything it hoped for. Sleek, professional, with a wall of law books and diplomas from Harvard. Gloria herself was in her early 60s, silver hair cut short, wearing a power suit that meant business. Her handshake was firm, her eyes sharp. "Harper, welcome. I'm so glad you finally called. Your mother spoke about you constantly. She was so proud." We sat in her conference room, and Gloria spread out documents across the massive table. "First things first. The criminal charges your father filed. Complete nonsense. I'm filing a motion today to have them dismissed. You were retrieving property that legally belonged to you. Your mother's letter proves intent. The judge will throw it out. What about the restraining order? Also being challenged. Your father claimed you were dangerous, but there's no evidence to support that. Well, have it dissolved within a week." Relief flooded through me. "What about the hospital bills he put in my name?" Gloria's smile turned sharp. "Ah, yes. That was illegal. He forged documents to transfer debt without your consent. We're filing charges against him for that. Plus, we're suing for the $2 million he stole from your mother's accounts before she died." She pulled out more papers. "Your mother's investigator traced everything. Richard moved money from joint accounts to hidden accounts with Sienna. We have bank records, transfers, everything. He thought your mother was too sick to notice, but she noticed everything." "What about his company?" Mom said there was fraud. Gloria's expression grew serious. "That's more complicated. Your mother's evidence shows Richard has been cooking the books for years, inflating company value, defrauding investors, tax evasion. If this information went to the SEC, he'd face federal charges, prison time, complete destruction of everything he's built. What should I do?" "That's entirely up to you. We could report him anonymously, watch his empire burn. Or we use it as leverage. Keep him from ever attacking you again. A sword hanging over his head. The threat might be more powerful than the execution." I thought about Mom's letter. "Don't seek revenge. Build your own life first." I made my decision. I want to build something good. Something that would make Mom proud. The revenge can wait. Over the next month, I used my mother's money to create the real Catherine Memorial Foundation. Not my father's publicity stunt, but a genuine organization to help families dealing with cancer. I rented office space in a beautiful building downtown. Hired Jade as the operations director with a real salary. Brought in social workers, counselors, financial advisors. We created programs specifically for daughters and sons caring for sick parents. Paid their rent when they couldn't work. Covered medical bills insurance wouldn't. Provided grief counseling. Everything I'd wished existed when I was drowning. I bought a townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a garden, space to breathe. No more sleeping on couches, no more depending on anyone. I furnished it simply but beautifully. Mom's style. Warm and welcoming. The foundation's launch made news. Small news at first, but word spread. Families we helped shared their stories. Volunteers joined. Donations poured in from people who'd watched loved ones fight cancer. Meanwhile, Gloria worked her magic in court. The criminal charges disappeared. The restraining order was dissolved. The judge actually apologized to me for the court's initial handling of the case. My father's lawyers had played the system, but once Gloria got involved with real evidence, the whole house of cards collapsed. We sued Richard for the stolen $2 million. His lawyers tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge ordered him to pay it back plus interest and legal fees. $2.4 million, due immediately. I watched my father's world start to crack. His company's stock price had been inflating for years on fake numbers. When a major investor requested an independent audit, the irregularities started showing up. Nothing conclusive yet. But people were asking questions. Sienna, that gold digger, started sensing the shift. She was suddenly too busy to see my father. Had excuses for missing events. I heard through the society grapevine that she'd been seen having dinner with another wealthy man, a real estate developer, 20 years her senior. My phone rang one evening while I was reviewing foundation applications. An unknown number, I answered cautiously. Harper, my father's voice. I hadn't heard it in 2 months. It sounded older, tired. How did you get this number? I need to talk to you. It's important. About what? I know your mother left you money. I know you have resources now. He paused. I'm your father. I deserve half. The audacity made me laugh. Actually laugh out loud. You deserve nothing. I raised you, provided for you. I have rights. You lost those rights when you threw me out the night Mom died. When you destroyed my reputation. When you tried to have me arrested. When you stole from Mom's accounts. That's all a misunderstanding. We can work this out as a family. We're not family. You made that clear. Gloria Winters is my attorney. If you want anything, go through her. But I promise you, you won't like what she has to say. I hung up. Blocked his number. It felt powerful. I didn't need his approval anymore. Didn't need his acknowledgement. Didn't need anything from him. Gloria called the next day. Your father's trying to sue for a portion of your mother's estate. Hes claiming spousal rights. Can he win? Not a chance. The prenup is ironclad. Your mother's assets were from her premarital inheritance. He signed away any rights 30 years ago. My team will handle it. Try not to worry. The lawsuit was dismissed within 3 weeks. The judge was harsh in his ruling, stating that Richard Morrison had no legal or moral claim to his late wife's separate property and ordering him to pay my legal fees for bringing a frivolous suit. Each small victory built my confidence. I started sleeping better, eating properly, going to the gym, reconnecting with old friends who'd believed in me, building a life that felt like mine. 6 months after Mom's death, I met Daniel at a foundation event. He was 31, an architect who volunteered his time redesigning spaces for cancer treatment centers. He had kind eyes and an easy smile. We talked for hours about accessible design and healing environments. He asked me to coffee, then dinner, then a walk through the park. It was slow and natural and felt nothing like the chaos my father had created. Daniel knew my story, had heard the rumors, but he made his own judgments based on who I actually was. You're not what the articles said. He told me one evening over Thai food. No one is what articles say. We're all more complicated than headlines. Your foundation is incredible. You're helping so many people. It's what Mom would have wanted. The best way to honor her memory. He reached across the table and took my hand. I think she'd be really proud of you. And in that moment, I believed it. I was building something meaningful, creating good from tragedy, succeeding not by destroying my father, but by choosing a better path. Of course, my father's reckoning was coming, just not by my hand. The universe has a way of balancing scales on its own. 1 year after my mother's death, the Catherine Memorial Foundation held its first annual gala. We'd rented a ballroom at the Fairmont Hotel, the kind of place my father used to frequent for business events. 200 guests filled the space. Families We'd helped, volunteers, donors. medical professionals who'd seen our work. I stood at the podium in a navy blue dress Mom would have loved, looking out at the crowd. Jade sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Daniel was there too, supportive as always. In 1 year, our foundation had helped over 500 families, provided $2 million in direct financial assistance, offered thousands of hours of counseling and support. My mother, Catherine Morrison, believed that strength wasn't about never falling down. I began. It was about getting back up, about helping others rise when they stumbled. She showed me that love isn't just words, it's action, it's sacrifice, it's building something that outlasts you. I talked about the families Wed helped. The single mother who could keep her apartment while caring for her sick son because we paid 3 months of rent. The father who got to his daughter's treatments because we provided gas cards and transportation. The teenager who received grief counseling after losing both parents to cancer. Every person we help is a tribute to my mother's memory. She taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives touched, hearts healed, hope restored. The audience applauded. I saw tears on many faces. These were people who understood loss, who knew what it meant to fight and struggle and barely survive. After my speech, as guests mingled and the band played, someone approached me. Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer who'd been too afraid to help me a year ago. He looked older, more worn. Harper, could I speak with you privately? We stepped into a quiet hallway. He looked uncomfortable, ashamed. I owe you an apology. I was a coward. Your father intimidated me, and I let him. I should have stood up for what was right. It's in the past, Mr. Patterson. Please, let me finish. I've been gathering evidence for the past 6 months. Documents your father thought were destroyed. Proof of his financial crimes. I submitted everything to the SEC last week. There's going to be an investigation. Federal charges are likely. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Not satisfaction exactly. More like completion. Thank you for telling me. But honestly, I've moved past needing him to face consequences. I'm focused on building, not destroying. That speaks well of you. Better than him. Mr. Patterson handed me an envelope. This is my resignation from his firm. And a donation to your foundation. It's not much, but it's what I can afford. I'm truly sorry I didn't help you when you needed it most. After he left, I opened the envelope. A check for $50,000. His conscience had finally won. I walked back to the gala and looked through the window. Across the street I saw him. My father. Standing alone in the shadows, watching the event. He looked smaller somehow. Diminished. His company was under investigation. Sienna had left him for a Dubai investor shed met at a charity auction. The mansion was up for sale to pay legal fees and court judgments. Everything Head valued was crumbling. Not because Id destroyed it, but because Head built his life on lies and cruelty, and those foundations never hold. For a moment, I felt pity. This bitter, lonely man, who'd thrown away his family for money and status, and ended up with neither. I could have let him stand there, suffering, could have ignored him completely. Instead, I walked outside. He turned as I approached, his face a mixture of emotions, pride, shame, regret. Harper, you can't hurt me anymore, I said gently. I've built a life you can't touch. But I don't hate you either. Hate is too heavy to carry. I hope you find peace, Dad. I really do. But you need to find it without me. I turned and walked back toward the hotel, toward the warmth and laughter and people who actually cared. I didn't look back, didn't need to see if he was still watching. It didn't matter anymore. Daniel met me at the door, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You okay? Yeah, I really am. The next morning, I visited Mom's grave. It'd been coming every week, talking to her, updating her on the foundation and my life. The grass was green and well-maintained. Flowers from my last visit still looked fresh. I knelt beside the headstone, bringing new roses. Her favorite? Mom, I understand now why you did everything you did. You taught me that strength isn't about revenge, It's about choosing who you want to be when someone tries to make you small. I traced her name carved in the granite. Catherine Helena Morrison, beloved mother. You gave me so much more than money. You gave me an example of grace under fire, of loving unconditionally, of preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The $33 million gave me freedom, but your love gave me strength. And that's priceless. I noticed something new. The groundskeeper must have installed it recently. A small bronze plaque beneath her name. I hadn't ordered it. But someone had. Perhaps Gloria. Perhaps Vivian. Perhaps even Mr. Patterson in his guilt. It read, Catherine Helena Morrison, beloved mother, extraordinary woman. Her love was the fortune that could never be spent. I smiled through tears. You're still teaching me, Mom. Still showing me how to live. Thank you. For everything. Daniel waited by his car at a respectful distance. We'd planned to spend the day together, maybe drive to the coast and walk on the beach. Simple pleasures, the kind Mom would have encouraged. As we drove away from the cemetery, I thought about everything that had happened. The cruelty, the betrayal, the climb back from nothing. People often ask me if it'd change anything about that terrible year. If I could go back and stop my father's betrayal, would I? The honest answer is no. Not because it didn't hurt, it did. It nearly destroyed me. But it also revealed exactly who I was and what I was capable of. My father's cruelty stripped away every comfort, every safety net, every false support, and when I had nothing left, I discovered I still had myself. Still had resilience I didn't know existed. My mother's love gave me the tools to not just survive, but to thrive. The $33 million changed my circumstances dramatically. It gave me options and security and the ability to help others. But Mom's real gift wasn't the money. It was the lesson she embedded in every carefully planned detail of my inheritance. She taught me that real strength is quiet, that preparation beats panic, that love shows up in actions, not words, that you can't control what others do to you, but you can absolutely control who you become in response. She taught me that success, genuine success, isn't measured by the size of your bank account or the power you hold over others. It's measured by the lives you touch, the good you create, the love you give freely without expecting anything back. My father thought wealth was about accumulation, taking, controlling. He spent his life gathering money and power and lost everything that actually mattered in the process. Hess alone now, facing federal charges, abandoned by everyone who claimed to care. I have love. I have purpose. I have a foundation that helps hundreds of people. I have Jade, my best friend who stood by me when the world turned away. I have Daniel, who sees me for who I truly am. I have Gloria and Vivian, and volunteers and families whose lives are better because Mom taught me how to care. That's the fortune that matters. The one that grows when you share it instead of shrinking. The one that enriches your life instead of hardening your heart. So here's what I want to say to anyone watching who's ever been betrayed by someone who should have protected them. To anyone who's been thrown away, discarded, told they're worthless. To anyone fighting their way back from rock bottom. You are not defined by what was done to you. You're defined by what you choose to do next. Your value doesn't come from other people's opinions. It comes from who you decide to be when the world tells you to give up. Build something beautiful from your pain. Help someone else climb out of their hole. Love fiercely and without conditions. And remember that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's creation. It's becoming so genuinely happy, so authentically successful, so deeply at peace that the people who tried to break you become irrelevant. My mother knew she was dying. She could have spent her final months in bitterness and fear. Instead, she spent them protecting me. Planning. Building. Loving me so powerfully that her love literally sustained me after she was gone. That's the legacy worth leaving. That's the fortune worth building. And that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life honoring. So thank you, Mom, for seeing who Dad really was and protecting me anyway. for the $33 million that gave me freedom, but mostly for teaching me that the greatest wealth is measured in love given and received, in lives touched and hearts healed, in choosing grace over bitterness even when bitterness would be easier. I miss you every single day. But you're still with me in every choice I make, every person the foundation helps, every moment I choose kindness over cruelty. Your love was the fortune that could never be spent, and it never will be. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone who should have protected you? How did you find the strength to rebuild? What lessons did you learn about real wealth versus money? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories about resilience, justice, and the power of love to overcome cruelty. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive their darkest moment and come out stronger. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter what you're facing right now, you have more strength inside you than you know. Just like my mother showed me, love and preparation can create miracles. Take care of yourselves. Honor the people who loved you well. And never, ever let someone else's cruelty define your worth. Until next time.